Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham Dhammam Sangham Namasami. Dear friends, we are continuing to discuss about the 10 paramis, or the perfections, which describe the practice of the Bodhisattva during his numerous lifetimes before he was born in historical times as Gautami or Buddha. This was requested by somebody, and it has been a very fascinating exploration to see how there's a blending of previous stories and elements, folk tales or mythology that existed in the previous culture that then got picked up in Buddhism and transformed by putting a Buddhist perspective on it. So I'm going to, without reading the entire Jataka story, I'm going to tell you the story about Ayyā, which is the Muga Paka Jataka. Tells you the name, number 538 in the Jataka stories. There was a king called Kasiraja. He was a just king. He was a good man, as such things go. He had 16,000 wives, but not a single one of them could conceive a baby. And the people were very sad about that, and they begged him to please get at least one child. So they made all of the queens, all of his wives, to pray and make offerings to try to get a child. And then finally his chief queen, whose name is Chanda, conceived a son. And so now this particular son, whose name is Ayyā, in his previous lifetime, he was in the Tusita heaven. And in the lifetime before that, he was living in hell for 60,000 eons. And in the lifetime before that, he was a king. And as a king, he did a certain number of evil and cruel deeds in punishing people. And it was because of his cruelty that he had to spend his time in jail. When he was born, he remembered, even as an infant, he remembered his previous lifetimes, and he knew about this. So it happened. I have to tell you about the nurses. He had 500 young nobles taking care of him, and then 500 ladies taking care of him. And they had 64 nurses who were all free from various kind of faults. This comes to something that's a very terrible, you could say a sexist idea, that if anything bad happens to a child, you should blame the mother, because it was some fault of the mother. So they said that if the mother was too skinny, it would be painful for the baby to sit on her lap while nursing. If the breasts were too high, the baby would get a long neck from reaching up trying to get the milk. If the breasts are too long, the baby would get a squished noise. And if the mother is too fat, the baby will get bow legs. So they had these 64 nurses who were all perfect. Oh, and if they're too dark, the milk will be cold, and if they're too light, the milk will be too hot. And if they're sick, the milk will be bitter. So he had those wonderful women taking care of them, taking turns every hour. They would switch to a different nurse who was like constantly feeding him. So he was extremely spoiled. And always loved, always carried around, never had to touch the ground. And then they had on his birth naming day, the Brahmin priests came and they predicted that this boy had no dangers and that he would be a powerful king. And then when he was 1 month old, they took him to his father, and his father was so happy and was playing with him and just playing games and cooing at the baby. And then one of the ministers came in with some work for the king and said, "Venerable sir, I have these criminals. What shall we do with them?" And the king sentenced one to get 1,000 strokes of whip barbed with thorns, another to be imprisoned in chains, a third to be smitten with a spear, and the fourth to be impaled. And the Bodhisattva infant, hearing these words, was terrified and thought to himself, "Oh, my father, through being the king, is guilty of such grievous actions. He's definitely going to hell." Then the next day, they put him in his crib, and there was a white parasol over the crib. And there's a deva who lives in the white parasol. And the deva advised Ayyā that he must avoid being made king, or else he will be forced to do evil, unwholesome deeds. And the way to avoid that is if he would show no intelligence at all, pretend to be crippled, deaf, and mute. And so Ayyā made this resolve that he would not do anything. He would not move. He would not speak. And he would not give any sign of hearing or noticing anything. So the family, of course, was desperate. So they said, "Well, we'll just not give him his milk unless he cries." But he didn't cry. And so they waited and waited and waited, and he never cried. And so finally they, fed him his milk anyway. And then they had many doctors examining, and his jaws are perfect, his lips are perfect, his ears are perfect, everything about his body is perfect. So they can't understand why he's dumb. So then they said, well, other babies like cakes and dainties, and so they would bring sweets. They brought 500 children, and they brought many sweets, and all the children gobbled the sweets, but Ayyā just sat and did nothing. And then they tried that all children love to play, and so they brought 500 children, and they brought little toy elephants and toy dolls and toy many different kinds of toys, and all the children were so happy playing with the toys, and Ayyā just sat, did nothing. He ignored it all. So then they tried to shock him, and they tried to shock the senses by making tremendous loud noises. And no matter what noise they made, he just stayed silent. So each year, the parents were giving different tests to see if they could get him to snap out of it and show some signs of life. So they tested him with noise. They tested him with having a soldier come with a weapon and threaten to cut off his head. They tested him by having bright lights flashing at him. And finally they tested him by, when he got to be, this went on until he was 16 years old. So that by the time he was 16, they sent beautiful ladies to go on to try to seduce him. And he wouldn't. He made his body rigid. And the more the ladies tried to seduce them, the more he was just, perfectly still. So finally, at the age of 16, not being able to find any weak point in his resolution, so his resolve, this is his adhitthana, is to pretend to be deaf and mute until he can get out of the duty of becoming the king. And then some Brahmin advisors said, well, you'll just have to have him killed. And so get somebody to put him into a chariot and carry him out to the charnel ground and dig a hole and put him in the hole and bury him. And the queen begged him not to, but he said he must, because the Brahmins told him that he must do that. And so they took him, and a servant took him out and left by the city gate and went to a distant place and found a place in the forest. He didn't go to the charnel ground. He went a different direction and went to a forest. And when he arrived in the forest, he said, okay, this is a good enough place. And he started digging his hole. And then at that point, Ayyā, the servant took off all of his clothing and put it in a bundle. So Ayyā had the resolve that now was the time to use his power. And then the god Saka came down and dressed him in the most glorious divine attire of a glorious king of the Devas. And he then tried moving his feet and moving his arms, and he found he could move them. And he jumped out of the chariot, and he found he was able to stand and he was able to walk. And so then he picked up the chariot and twirled it around like twirling a hat when he had his power back. And then he spoke to the servant, but the servant didn't know who was speaking. He didn't recognize him and finally he looked and he realized what had happened, and then became faithful. And Ayyā did return back to the kingdom, but he refused the kingship, and he converted his parents to the Dhamma and became a recluse, wandering and living in the forest for the remainder of his long life, after having spent that first 16 years holding silence. This is a very strange story. One aspect of this is we think that we have to, if we want to solve a problem, we think we have to do something. But when we're practicing meditation, we don't have to do anything. We have to do nothing. And we have to stop the mind from the constant activity. And so Ayyā's stillness is a symbol of stopping the mind. And then, stopping the running around, stopping the activity, stopping the karma creation of doing many different kinds of actions. which is a very advanced kind of practice, that somebody who has not yet obtained any of the stages of enlightenment may first do a lot of good deeds, developing merits. And because of doing their deeds of merit, it helps to relieve the defilements of mind, the negative qualities of the mind become weaker and weaker. And if they don't get enlightened because of their deeds of merit, they may go to a heavenly rebirth, or a very pleasant rebirth, or a human rebirth, a fortunate rebirth, where they're able to hear the teachings of the Buddha. But then, and even as monastics, we continue doing good deeds. We don't go beyond the value of doing merits. So when I try to tell you something about the Dhamma, this is the merit that I'm doing as a generosity. My gift to you is to try to tell about the Dhamma. And when I try to keep the precepts and keep the sila, that's also a merit for me. When I listen to the Dhamma, that's a merit for me. When I practice meditation, that's a merit for me. But it's also true that once a person has had the breakthrough to become a stream winner, then they can start to go beyond merit, and they're striving to do the kind of deeds that they come to the end of doing any more karma. So they're moving in the direction of going beyond action. And so Ayyā, in a way, is symbolizing a person who has gone beyond doing any kind of actions by having that perfect stillness. There's another way, several other ways to think about stillness. One is that a person who's in a lower social position, like a child, or I could say a woman, is sometimes required to be silent, or if they speak, they're not able to be heard. And there's something in the, like a liberation theory, like or a feminist idea, that for women to become liberated, it's really important for them to find their voice and to be able to speak up and to speak out, to speak the truth. And that is true, but it's also true that silence is a kind of a way of speaking. And silence can be extremely powerful. I can remember when I was a girl, my mother was very dedicated to peace. As a mother, she didn't like quarrels at all. And if anything happened at home in the family that made her upset, she would become completely quiet. And years later, when we talked about it, she said that she had the feeling, because of her childhood experiences, that quarrels can ruin the family, that quarrels can really kill the family. And so whenever something happened that she really didn't like, she would think, well, should I speak up and ruin my family, or should I be quiet and save my family? And so her being quiet was actually a really powerful expression of her love for us, that she wanted us to be in harmony. And if she was feeling internally not harmonious, she kept that quiet, but it was her expression of love. Of course, as children, the way we took it, we were terrified when Mom became quiet. We'd say, oh no, what happened? What did we do? And we'd all try to really be very good. There are another experience I've had outside of Buddhism that shows the power or the different ways of communicating about the Dhamma. Before I came to Buddhism, I attended Quaker meetings for some time, and they sit in silence, and they sit in a silent worship, which is okay. It's their form of meditation. But if somebody has a feeling like an inspiration, they feel it's like coming from God, they may stand, and from the silence they may speak, and usually speaking briefly. But there's some people who fancy themselves to be a preacher, and they speak very often during the Quaker meetings. And sometimes you have a meeting that they call popcorn, where a lot of people are speaking out of the silence. You don't have that much silence. But then there was one lady in the meeting who very rarely spoke. She was just quiet. Week in and week out, she was quiet. And then every once in a while, she would say something. And when she spoke, everybody wanted to listen to know what she had to say. So silence can be powerful. Being silent, you can be very receptive. It doesn't mean that you have no agency. You have a choice, and you also have a lot of vivid inner life, of vivid inner experiences, inner growth, inner maturing. So it doesn't just mean that Tamiya was being like suppressed during those 16 years of silence, but actually Tamiya was growing in power during that time, such that he finally was able to break the shackles of his destiny and escape from the destiny of becoming a king, where he would be obliged to enforce the law and to do things that would be against his bodhisattva precepts. But I'm now going to give you some quotations from other suttas that give the more of the true Buddha's teaching in the suttas about adhitthana, which could be translated as a resolve or a determination or a resolution. And it's the adhitthana parami, the perfection of adhitthana that we're striving for. So this is Mattangaputta's gatha from his enlightenment. It's too cold, too hot, too late, they say. When the young neglect their work like this, opportunities pass them by. But one who considers heat and cold as no more than blades of grass, he does his duties as a man, and his happiness never fails. With my chest, I'll thrust aside the grasses, vines, and creepers, and foster seclusion. So for a monk, the work is the meditation. We recommend that those who are visiting the monastery should definitely start their meditation practice in the evening when we start at 6 o'clock with our chanting and meditation, and then don't just laze about. Continue your meditation as long into the night as you can, and then go to sleep mindfully, intending to sleep just as much as you need to, and intending to get up early in the morning and resume your meditation without fail, with determination. And if you have the sniffles, or if you have a headache, or if you feel distracted, or if you feel busy, or if you're worried about your problems, or you're worried about your duties, don't take an excuse like that. Keep on striving. So that's one side, is just the effort. But there's more to it than that. The effort should be well directed. So you're not just like flashing about with random energy, but instead your effort is directed towards a purpose. Here's a Chulapantaka Sutta. It's the Udana. This is one of the brief exclamations of the Buddha. Steady in body, steady in mind, standing, sitting, or lying down. I highlighted Titta. So Aditana, that's the Tana, the Titta, that's standing. That's stability. This is why Ajahn Thanissaro translates this quality as persistence. So you set about doing it and you persist in doing what you're aiming for. So steady in body, steady in mind, standing, sitting, or lying down. A mendicant focusing on this mindfulness, that's aditthana, taking a hold of this determination. And what is it? It's the sati. So with determination, grasping the mindfulness gains ever higher distinction. When they've done so, they banish the king of death. So in this case, the resolve is not just spinning with effort, not just making the effort to hold the body still in meditation, not just making the effort to get out of bed or to lay in an upright posture, but making the effort with the mind towards mindfulness. Okay. Now here, this is just a short portion of the Ananjasapaya Sutta, which is about being undisturbed. And this is sort of linking back to the story. The parents, in their desperation, probably advised by doctors, you know how when doctors don't know what they're doing, how they come up with all kind of like crazy strategies to try to cure somebody. They may try to use leeches, or they may try to use brain shock, or they may try to use all kind of things that are really harmful because they don't know what they're doing. So, but it's attacking the senses. And this one is, when it's referring to sensual pleasure, he's particularly pointing to the danger with the five senses as a focus for the aditthana. The Buddha said, mendicant sensual pleasures are impermanent, hollow, false, deceptive. This is made by illusion, lamented by fools. Sensual pleasures in this life and in lives to come. Sensual perceptions in this life and in lives to come. Both of these are Mara's dominion, Mara's domain, Mara's lair, Mara's range. They conduce to bad, unskillful notions, such as desire, ill will, and aggression. They create an obstacle for the noble disciple training here. So the noble disciple should reflect on this, about the danger of sensuality. And then they should think, why don't I meditate with an abundant, expansive heart, having mastered the world and stabilized the mind? So this is the aditta, is stabilizing the mind in meditation. Then I will have no more bad, unskillful notions, such as desire, ill will, and aggression. And by giving them up, my mind, no longer limited, will become limitless and well developed. So this is about the boundless meditation, as like, for example, practicing boundless loving kindness, or contemplating boundless space, making the mind stable, overcoming all the hindrances that disturb the mind, quieting and stilling all the hindrances. And when the mind is still, then is the right time to radiate the boundlessness of the mind. Practicing in this way and meditating on it often, their mind becomes confident in this dimension. Being confident, they either attain the imperturbable, that's the ananja, or else they are freed by wisdom. So they are either liberated of the imperturbable liberation or the liberation by wisdom. I'm going to bring you even more nuances. What I'm trying to do is layer on the many different kinds of nuances of meaning for this word aditana. This is Sona. Sona had been a musician before. He had been, before he ordained, he had been very spoiled. He was so spoiled that his feet were extremely soft, and he had fur on the bottom of his feet because he had such a soft life. But while he was practicing meditation, he was trying and striving, and he did walking meditation so much that his feet became very sore and even started bleeding. And as much as he tried harder and harder and harder to practice the walking meditation, the more distress he experienced. And finally, he was ready to give up because he thought his effort was in vain. And now the Buddha gives this advice. When you were still a layman, you were a good player of the arched harp, yes, sir. When your harp strings were tuned too tight, was it resonant and playable? No, sir. When your harp strings were tuned too slack, was it resonant and playable? No, sir. But when your harp's strings were tuned neither too tight nor too slack, but fixed at an even tension, was it resonant and playable? Yes, sir. So in this way, Sona, when energy is too forceful, it leads to restlessness. When energy is too slack, it leads to laziness. Sona, you should focus on energy and serenity. So it's the balancing. Find a balance of the faculties and learn the characteristics of this situation. So virya samatha, the perfect balance between energy and quiet. And you should make the aditana, the resolve, on just that balancing point. So it still is a challenge for the mind to be able to be balanced between those two factors. And to stay in the middle, you need to be extremely mindful, extremely aware, able to make the small adjustments so that the mind doesn't go too far one way or too far the other way. And to keep that mind on that balancing point. So it's strong, but delicate at the same time. This aditana that the Buddha is recommending. So he's not just saying, just hold your breath for 16 years and be like I guess some children do that, or some teenagers, they do that, they refuse to talk. And so don't be like that. It's much more subtle than that. Now, also, there's another kind of resolve, which is the wrong resolve. And for this one, I'm going to read you a sentence from the Kachanagota Sutta. This is a very famous passage. And I put the numbers on the screen, so if you want to remember, you can, I'll put this document in the chat so that, let me see. I don't know how to do this. How do you add something to a chat? Is the speaker allowed to, here is a comment. Okay. Okay, if you click on that link, you may see the different links, the citations for the different passages that I'm reading you right now. And then you can read them later on and reflect about them. Here's the Kachanagota Sutta. Kachana, this world relies on the duality of existence and non-existence. But for one who truly sees the origin of the world with right understanding, the concept of non-existence regarding the world does not occur. And for one who truly sees the cessation of the world with right understanding, the concept of existence regarding the world does not occur. These are two kinds of views about the self, that the self is annihilated, or that there is a self which is annihilated, or there is a self which is eternal. Okay. He goes on and says, the world is for this most part shackled by getting involved, grasping, and insisting. But if for all that getting involved and grasping, mental fixation and insistence and underlying tendency, they do not get attracted, grasped, and fixated on the thought, myself, then they will have no doubt or uncertainty that what arises is just suffering arising, and what ceases is just suffering ceasing. Their knowledge of this is independent of others. So the wisdom here is the aditana, is having an aditana about the thought myself. So that's the wrong aditana. Do not fix the mind on the self. And even when you observe in yourself or experience in yourself tendencies to get involved into grasping, which can arise for all of us who are practicing on the path of awareness, we know this. We still have those reactions, those emotional reactions, the things we like and dislike, and the things that we want, and the things that we hate. And those reactions are continuously going on. And so there's the constant danger of the mind getting fixed, getting resolved based on like and dislike, based on sensual liking and disliking, based on an idea of the self liking and disliking. And so that kind of fixation is not what you want. So you want to have a determination to keep that perfect mindfulness, which is the mind in the middle, in practicing meditation. But at the same time, you're so determined with that, you're banishing any kind of determination about the ego. Even like, this is my meditation. Here's another sutta that is repeating the same idea. What is the leash to existence? What is the cessation of the leash to existence? Radha, any desire, greed, relishing, and craving for form. Any attraction, grasping, mental fixation, insistence, and underlying tendencies. This is called the leash to existence. And this is a great long Pali word called aditana abhinivesananusaya. Aditana abhinivesa anusaya is all one compound word, which means mental fixation, insistence, and underlying tendencies. That's the subconscious tendencies from the habits of the mind. So that's the leash to existence. And their cessation is the cessation of the leash to existence. And this is given with regard to form, feeling, perception, choices, and consciousness. So this is that same thing. It's given that same idea, this aditana, but in this case, it's not a good thing. It's a bad thing when it's not properly directed. And I'll finally give you one other case of aditana, which if you don't read Pali, you might have missed this one completely. This is in the sutta called the Dhatu Vibhanga Sutta, the elements meditation. The Buddha said, this person has 4 foundations. That's but it's not the same thing as the 4 foundations of mindfulness. The 4 foundations of mindfulness, they're called patthana. It's got the thana in it. That's the fixing, okay? And these 4 foundations are the chatur, that means 4, aditana. So it could be translated as 4 resolutions, or 4 resolves, or 4 decisions, or persisting in 4 things. And these 4 qualities are this is really, this whole sutta is like a lion's roar. It's speaking about the person who's gotten their stream entry, who is on the road to becoming a fully enlightened arhat, and the person who is a fully enlightened arhat. And it says, this is the way an arhat practices. And those 4 foundations are, do not neglect wisdom, preserve the truth, foster relinquishment, and train only for peace. The not neglecting wisdom is this entire practice with all of the contact with the senses, everything in the material world, everything in samsara, being able to see through and go beyond any kind of delusion or clinging or attachment about any of those things that are experienced with our ordinary senses, even to the extent of experiencing high and refined states of concentration, like we read a little bit before, that the person would stabilize their mind and practice the boundless meditation. But even in this sutta, even with that boundless meditation, they recognize that even that state is conditioned, impermanent, not the ultimate refuge, and not something to be clung to. So even while practicing with determination and the highest meditation, they don't cling to it. And then standing on that, they realize the breakthrough to enlightenment. And with enlightenment, all of the clinging and craving falls away. And they reach the state of non-disturbance. And so that entire practice, culminating in arahantship, falls under this first adhitthana, which is not to neglect the wisdom. So it's the wisdom about this world of samsara, seeing the real nature of everything here in samsara. And then the next one is to preserve the truth. And the explanation of this given in the sutta is that nibbana has the character to be not deceptive. Nibbana has the character of truth. And so then you preserve the clarity. When craving is completely quenched, then the ability to see reality truthfully, just as it is, that is nibbana, that non-deceptive quality. And so that is to be preserved. And then fostering a relinquishment, that's called chaga, which you may have heard of chaga also as generosity and giving. So the chaga is you relinquish, you don't pick up any acquisitions. So any liking, disliking, preferences, feeling of ownership, feeling of identification, all of those things are like acquisitions. So it would be like if you dropped your armor and became free, and you see that your armor is lying in pieces all around you, you don't pick it and put it back on. That's the relinquishment. You leave it. Don't pick it up again. And then the training for peace means that in the Dattavibhanga Sutta, that when the mind has no preferences either for existence or for non-existence, there is nothing to be disturbed about. And so then there's no swelling up of conceit. It says the tides of conceit don't rise up and overwhelm the one who's called the sage at peace. So then these four things are called adhitthanas. And I think you could say that in the sutta version, unlike the earlier version in those Jataka stories that we started with, this is the real adhitthana, is the adhitthana, the stability of enlightenment. So now I'm going to look and see what the comments are. Welcome, Janaki, Yankee Apple, Gregory, Brian, Totag, Jody, and Ramesh. And oh, I need access to this. Okay, I'm going to fix this document. I'm going to share this and say, anyone with a link. Done. Okay. Now, anyone with a link can see that sutta, can see the collection of quotations that I sent you. There is an opera that was written by a Thai composer about that story, that Jataka story, and all of the attempts to disturb the child are given with great flair and great dramatic opportunities, with all like the noises and the lights and the soldier with the sword and the dancing ladies and the children with their toys, and all of the different elements in the story are given like in this very dramatic and operatic way, and it's in a way it's a showing like this is a very famous sutta in traditional Buddhist culture, and a lot of people know the story very well, and it's kind of like embedded in the culture. The composer was challenged like how to have an opera in which the main character is completely silent and still for 90% of the show. But he selected a very skillful and talented singer who was a male soprano singer with a very beautiful voice. And so he just had to sit there like a lump during the whole part of the show. And then at the end, when he opened his throat and sang, it was so amazing because it came after, like 40 minutes of silence at the first part of the program. And then opening the voice was like so beautiful, so strong, so powerful, so effective. And so that it does in a way show the we have the practice of silence, but we're not just completely dumb and mute. We may practice silence for most of the day or for several days in a row, and then when we speak, we'll speak about the Dhamma. The name of the play. Okay, so let's see if I can find it. Downloads. That's not it. Sorry, I have closed that window, and I think it's not convenient for me to open it. But if you search, you may be able to find it. Because obviously I found it, so Google knows about it.
I have a question. Would you be able to kindly share some of the things that you do in your personal practice to when you have the just throughout the day, what are some things that you do that is very supportive for your personal practice?
In terms of the adhitanas?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so the question was what kind of adhitanas do I practice in my personal practice? The one adhitana that I made a long time ago that I have kept throughout these 20 years of my life as a bhikkhuni is I resolved to be authentic. So if I personally understood some aspect of the Dhamma, then I would acknowledge what I personally understand, what I have personally realized through my direct experience. But if it's something that I've learned about by reading the suttas, that I understand at some level, intellectually, I understand the concepts, or I could remember the concepts, but I have not actually realized it for myself, then I will not claim to or pretend to know something that's just something that I read about, or something that I saw somebody else has realized something, and I see what they're like, and I can then like imitate that person and pretend to have realized something. So in a certain way, from the very beginning, I knew that that kind of honesty would sometimes make me look stupid, because sometimes the mind was like really imperfect. You're having a lot of negative emotions or negative reactions or a lot of weakness and so forth. But I felt that it was worth the risk of looking bad in order to keep it real. And so that has been one adhitthana that I've been able to keep. In other ways, other people in this, even in this community, other monastics or other meditators I've known, have got more strength and willpower than I have in terms of longer sitting practice, longer formal meditation practice. And that's very admirable, very noble. I recommend it. And when a person, if you identify a bad habit or something like that, okay, well, you can make a resolution. But in a certain way, that's like the weakest and most, the least productive kind of practice. If you say that you are too lazy, so you're going to do get up earlier in the morning, and then you do that for a little while, but then kind of it doesn't become like relevant anymore. So that's not the most powerful kind of adhitthana. According to the suttas, the most powerful kind of adhitthana is to become more mindful, to make the mindfulness more continuous, so that then with mindfulness one is able to keep one's personal practice balanced. And so you've got the balance between relaxation and calmness and exertion and high energy. And you're keeping your practice centered in that way. So that way you've got this combination of being able to do many things, but you've got the inner stillness. So you've got this very relaxed way, but still able to do things. So here's Ryan, who's given the answer. The Silent Prince, based on this story, is composed by the Thai-American composer Samto Sanchoitikul. Yes, that sounds like it. Now Ryan has got a question going. The question is whether the mindfulness meditation adhitthana is something that can be kept even while asleep. It's definitely recommended to go to sleep mindfully, and to have a adhitthana about how long you're going to sleep for, and to have an adhitthana about when you're going to awaken, and have an adhitthana to wake up mindful. And then it's recommended, if you're going to sleep mindfully, you should sleep in the lion's posture. Like if you see the statue of the sleeping Buddha, the Parinibbana Buddha, sleeping on one side, like that, that's considered the best posture for mindful sleeping. And with that determination, I will not claim that everyone will be able to have like a lucid dreaming. That is a kind of mindfulness during sleep. Like, so when a person is in deep sleep, they're not conscious. And so I think mindfulness would not be present during the time that somebody is in the deep stage of sleep. But while they're in the stage of dreaming, it is possible to have to train yourself to be lucid when dreaming. And the method for that is you can make a note, like during the day, whether you're awake or asleep. So I think I'm awake. Is this a dream or am I awake? I said, okay, I'm awake now. And so then you keep like getting the habit of asking yourself this question over and over again: am I awake or am I asleep? Until that awareness of the state, being either in the awaking state or the dream state, is something that becomes embedded as a habit of the mind. And then it can happen that with more frequency than while having a dream, you can be aware within the dream that you're dreaming. So then you would then have the ability to intentionally direct your dreams. So you could fly up in the sky and go and visit your mother and look down and see how she's doing in your dream state as part of lucid dreaming. I have not had that experience, but I do very regularly have the experience that the whatever is a concern or a question or an unsolved problem that I've been pondering or working with in my practice, that very often the dreams give the answer in a coded format in terms of a story. I'll tell you one that I haven't told very often. When I first started, the very first time I took a weekend retreat, so I was just getting started in Buddhism. No, it was a week-long, a 10-day retreat. And every night I had lots and lots and lots of dreams. And I basically, I dreamed of performing all of the 7 deadly sins of Catholicism. So like greed, lust, anger, sloth, all of those things were being enacted by me during the dreams. And the message that I got from that was that even though I'm trying to be good, those parts of me which are bad also have the right to attend this retreat. And I have to allow all of me to be present for the meditation or for, whatever the transformative power of the meditation practice of the retreat. And so it's like the dream was like many different kind of weird stories with many twists and turns. But the moral of the dreams has always been very frequently been super clear and quite beneficial in practice. So I'm not seeing any more questions. Okay, here's another question in the room.
Okay, we talked about chaga and recognition. Right? So does it the same as the 7 awakenings
Chaga is actually very close to dana or giving. So, but chaga is not just like giving food or giving a dana. Chaga is like you give up everything. You give everything. So chaga has more that feeling of giving and letting go. Equanimity has more the quality of being not disturbed. So different kinds of things are striking you, whether pleasant or unpleasant, are coming to you, but you don't have any disturbance about it because of you've got the very expanded mind. And so that,
like inside thing.
Yeah. Right.
For wake up.
Yeah. Upekkha is and chaga are both other ones of the perfections that were developed by the Bodhisattva. Yeah. Okay, I think I'm going to call this conclusion for this program, and thank you for your patient listening. Sadhu, 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 anumodami.